Been together so long we can't pretend. Remember the way we used to move, dance all night like young lovers do. Your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, he'll get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me, baby.
This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Hello and welcome to Broad Radio. I'm Jo Stanley and my co-host today is the very glamorous Kerrie Stanley. Oh my God, lady.
Oh, good morning, Jo, and hello, everyone.
You are a sight for sore eyes. You look glorious today.
Thank you. Well, look, I'm very fortunate that I can colour my own hair. Hair cutting, not so much. So I think by the end of lockdown, I might have a bob. But that's all right. Thank you for those lovely compliments. Any excuse to pop a lippy on? Let's be honest. Like we're mask wearing all the time, and that's okay. We have to do it. But not when you put lipstick on, it ends up all over the face. So, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me today.
Oh,
Yay.
it's gorgeous.
Favourite day of the
see
week
you.
when it's Broad Radio.
I know, it's so gorgeous to see you again, Kez. And look, we are in lockdown. There's lots of sort of bleak news in and around the world at the moment. So I'm deeming today's show being brought to us by the letters ABBA, as in ABBA's back, baby.
ABBA is back. And in this household, my partner Lexi is the biggest fan. Like I would have to say, she might be close to a super fan with regards to the knowledge of ABBA. So much so that when we were meant to go overseas last year, we were going to go through Switzerland and for the hometown of where Frida lived, just so she could stalk her. Good thing that didn't happen because apparently she wasn't there. They were filming all the day before the concert. So that worked out well. But yes, we're very happy in this household, so much so we have preempted and bought tickets to the London concert.
Wow. Okay. Well, we need to deep dive into this. We're going to be doing that a little later on. Also on the show today, the amazing Julia Zemiro, multi-talented singer, actor. She's got some ABBA stories as well. She'll be joining us later on in the show. We have the author of a beautiful book called The Dictionary of Lost Words, Pip Williams, is joining us. A little bit of a book club kind of vibe there. And first up also, we're going to be joined by Australia's first para-cheerleader. She's also a vlogger and she's an absolute superstar. I love this young woman. Emily Quattrocchi is going to be joining us. And that's all after this. Broad Radio is proudly supported by Chemist Warehouse. Chemist Warehouse, great savings every day. Oh, as we always do, there's a little bit of housekeeping up the top. If you're watching on Facebook, hello, thank you for joining us and please do like and follow us. Also on YouTube, if you're watching us, chuck us a subscribe. That'd be nice. There's a dog in the background with you, Kerrie, which I just love because it's your neighbour.
It's not my dog. Just like previous broadcast I did, not my cat. So it seemed to be like the Pied Piper of animals. I don't know, this poor little dog in the background somewhere.
Oh, that's all right. We've got the wind howling outside our window today. It's one of my favourite things about connecting with people wherever they are in the world. So that's fine. We welcome that puppy dog. If you are wanting to catch up on any of the previous episodes, you can always do that with our podcast, Broad Radio on the Go, wherever you get your podcasts. And we do love it also when you connect with us via our More to Say poll. It's just one question and it's very simple, and you go in the running for winning a handy little prize. And this week, in one of my greatest efforts of self-promotion, you can win yourself all 5 of my books. They're kids' books. They Play Like a Girl series, and they're about an under 11 girls footy team called the Flyers, and I just love those books. So they're for a 10-year-old reader in your life. Yeah, why not? I've got a shitload of them. So I may as well be generous with that, I say. So ABBA is, they've released 2 new songs, right? And they've got an album coming. And I think anybody of our generation has memories of ABBA, okay?
Yes, 100%.
I have a confession. I'm not a huge fan. Does that make me a betrayal of my generation?
No, but I'm surprised. Look, each to their own, Joe. No judgment. We want to be in a world of no judgment. Therefore, I cannot judge that you are not into ABBA. That's okay. Not sure why.
Well, let me explain. I mean, we're obviously, like every child of the late 70s, I had ABBA Arrival, and we would play it on high. It's all we had, literally, in our record collection from the age of maybe 7 to 10 for me. So it was a big part of my childhood, but I think I'm a bit scarred by the fact that my older sister and she would get to play Anna, I had to play Frida. And generally, though, I only got to sing the backup lyrics. My older sister wouldn't let me sing any of the actual lyrics. So I was sort of on the side going, take a chance, 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 take a chance.
Oh, no.
And that was about it. So I don't know. But also,
well, look,
you know, I don't go to the dance floor when Dancing Queen is... It's not my thing.
Okay, all right. Not drunk at a wedding anytime? No? Okay, that's all right.
No. What do you love about ABBA?
I was just going to say, Joe, this could be your time for redemption, you know. You don't have to be in the shadows of your sister anymore with the new release of these new songs. Look at them. That's them filming for their virtual concert, which will be incredible, which we have bought tickets for August next year in London. Hoping we can go. We're being ambitious. That's all right. What do I love about them? I don't know. It's just catchy, and again, it's nostalgic for me. And their new music is nostalgic. They didn't change the formula for how they work. I love that about them. And of course, it's just keeping in with our generation and bringing in some new followers. Some awesome remixes already of those 2 new songs that have been released. And my favorite ones, I think, was When I Kissed the Teacher. Like that to me was like, ooh, was a little bit naughty when I was listening to that when I was 7, I think. Does Your Mother Know? Again, a little bit like, does your mother know? I'm like, oh, okay, right. Yeah. And on it, so not the kind of classic ones, like you said, Dancing Queens or Mamma Mia or Waterloo, which are all fun, but I like kind of some of those older ones mixed in there. Well, anyway, it'll be fun.
Already we have Katrina on Facebook telling us, I cannot tell you how much joy there was hearing those 2 women's voices again, which I will agree. I like the new songs, and yes, hearing those 2 iconic voices that are so beautifully matched. And they were such a big part of, for us as children, looking up to these women. Massive, beautiful memories in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's time to take that mic back and take that lead singing.
All right. All right. I will. Now that you mentioned those songs, I will say I am recalling, you know, I did love a bit of Does Your Mama Know That You're Out?
I love that. Does your mother know that you're out?
All right. Well, we're going to be speaking about this with Julia Zemiro later on too, because she's met Frida.
Jealous.
So jealous.
Oh.
Hey, it's a very exciting week for us because it is Women's Health Week, and it's presented by Jean Hales for Women's Health, who, if you don't know them, they're an extraordinary organisation, not-for-profit national organisation that are all about promoting women's health at every stage of their life. And we're really excited because we're partnering with Jean Hales for Women's Health and bringing you a pop-up show every day at 1 o'clock live. Today, we are talking tricky periods candidates, and we've got Isabel Marshall, Young Australian of the Year, and of course she's the founder of Taboo Period Products. And we have a wonderful gynecologist, Dr. Elizabeth Farrell, joining us as well, answering all the questions that you might have around periods or any other kind of gyno issues. So that's going to be a great conversation. Tomorrow, Kerrie, you're joining me at 1 o'clock live to talk about sex at any age.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about
babe.
And all that. Yeah, so we've got a vast array of subjects we're going to talk about with that. It's not just sex, of course, but sexuality, all age. We have lots of questions. Of course, if you have your questions, darling viewers and listeners, feel free to throw them our way. It's a time to chat. Yeah.
Yes.
I should be, though, on Friday because it's talking about sleep. And since I normally work on News Breakfast, which I get up at 3 a.m. for work, that's kind of my subject.
Yeah, sleep is a really big one. So
I'll be tuning in for that.
Friday's conversation. So because we are working with Jean House for Women's Health this week, and we're super pleased to be doing so, we're also pleased right now to welcome Ambassador for Jean Hales. She is Australia's first para-cheerleader. She's a vlogger. I want you to check out her YouTube. It's at Quattrocchi, and I'm just obsessed with this young woman. She's amazing. Good morning, Emily Quattrocchi.
Hello.
Good morning.
Em, I have been really glued to your YouTube station at Quattrocchi because I feel like I kind of know you, right? I know that you make a really mean cocktail. I know that you have a cat called Rambo. You've also introduced your viewers to what life's like living with a disability, and you're so honest about living with a spinal cord injury, and even took us right back to that very first moment when you were in hospital after you had had a car accident and you had experienced this injury. I just am so amazed at your honesty. What led you to share so much of yourself in this way?
Well, I've always had a passion, I studied filmmaking. Filmmaking's a big passion of mine, but I used to always prefer being behind the camera. But when I was in hospital, my family kept filming me, and I'd tell them, stop filming me. And they're like, no, you're going to make it into a documentary one day. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to be in front of the camera. And then it turns out a few months after I left hospital, they were right, and I made a short documentary which showed my injury and my hospital experience and everything. And which got into some film festivals, and hearing people's reactions to it, like people laughing in the audience and stuff, made me feel amazing and made me realize I could make such an impact with videos. So I want to use my videos to help change perspectives of disabilities, and then also help other people with spinal cord injuries, and yeah.
And that's so fabulous and wonderful that you're doing that. I'm just going to take a little step back in time, like, let's talk cheerleading. Now, when Joe said to me we were having a chat with you today and said that you're a para-cheerleader and was cheerleading before that, I love cheerleading. And I know, I think it was probably maybe 8 or 9 years ago, my daughter, when she was 14, she joined cheerleading. She did it for a year. And I was a cheer mom for that time, and I was super happy. What I loved about it was the culture within, especially within that club, but also with intra-clubs too. They had a really great policy, and clearly that positivity is with you. That's why, you're a cheerleader. It's more to than doing rah-rah, as we know. It's an amazing competitive sport. And now you want to take that into the future by forming your own para cheerleading team. How's that going?
Well, COVID's kind of stopped that because when I was in Melbourne in interim accommodation, so I was able to go cheerleading. But I just returned home to regional Victoria, so haven't been able to go back to Melbourne for cheerleading. So there's a bit of a hold on that. But when things start to get better, hopefully I'll be able to go back to cheerleading and getting a team together and everything.
How's the response been within your team, though? Like, it's such a glorious thing to see these photos, and the working together as a team must be super fun.
Yeah, there's the club Southern Cross Cheer. They have helped me so much. I remember being in hospital, and because para-cheer wasn't really a thing, and me messaging the head coach and like asking, "Oh, is it possible you could help me with cheerleading?" And then he was like, "Yeah," he was so supportive and helped me to do it and help me get back to the thing I love.
That's amazing. Of course, COVID's put a stop to so many things. But as you said, look, we will open up and we'll get there again. Is there been a response internationally? You want to bring up, like a world team together? That would be the first in its world. I mean, you are really leading the charge here, Em.
Oh, there is other para-cheer teams in the world. So when I was in hospital, I thought I couldn't do cheerleading. But then I saw a para-cheerleader, a cheerleader in a wheelchair, and I was like competing at the big world competition. And I saw it and I'm like, oh, I can do cheerleading. So, and and since then I've talked to him and stuff like that, and he's helping me like learn about it and stuff. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Em, your friends feature a lot on your YouTube channel with your vlogging, and one of the things I see that you do is that you actually celebrate the anniversary of your accident each year. You celebrate it, which I find a really interesting flip of what perhaps people might imagine you do as you approach such a traumatic incident. Why do you celebrate such a thing?
Well, the way I look at it is that I survived to live another day. I was very close to dying, but luckily I survived. And around that time, you can get sad because that day my life completely changed. And if I focused on all the sad things and stuff, I would end up probably depressed and not happy with my life. So I like to, and it gets hard around that month of the year. So I like to fill it up with things that make me feel grateful and positive to be alive, and spending time with my drinks with my friends. I feel grateful when I'm doing that. So that's why I like to do it.
What an incredible space to put yourself into. Now, you're an ambassador for the Jean Hales for Women's Health. How did that come about?
Well, that came about because I made a video. Because there was a lunch that I used to go the next step, and they did a lunch with Jean Hales, and I did a video on it for my YouTube channel, and then they saw it, and then they asked me if I'd like to be an ambassador. Yeah.
And so what would you like us to know about people who are living with spinal cord injury? Like your YouTube channel is so educational, and I would love for everybody to kind of get the insight that you share on that channel. What would you like us all to know?
I would like everyone to know that everyone with a spinal cord injury is different, and it's just a part of who they are. It's not everything who they are. And everyone has different career paths, everyone has different hobbies, everyone has different injuries, and just to never make stereotypes or assumptions about that person. Understand it's a different person who's just a different person. I don't know if that makes sense.
It certainly does. So, and what's next for you on the filmmaking scene? Are you plotting along something wonderful next? What's happening there?
A couple of things. At the moment, I'm trying to make like a documentary on my recovery and rehab. That's just at home. And then I'm also trying to apply for my master's in film. So I applied in 2019, but I got to the interview stage, but I didn't get in. But I'm trying again to apply, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I get in this time.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realise it was so hard to get into a Masters in Film.
Yeah, well, it's at Melbourne Uni and they only accept 20 students, so it's pretty tough.
That is pretty tough. No, well, we
no
do
pressure.
we do wish you well there. And finally, I need to know, because we are in lockdown and these sorts of things feature in our house, what's your favourite cocktail?
I do like anything with vodka in it, but I also love frozen daiquiris on a hot summer's day. So when we're going into hotter weather, so I'll have a frozen daiquiri. Yeah, lovely.
I've got to say, I found your videos very instructional as far as how to make you've got like two or three different videos there where you give us like step-by-step instructions on how to make some beautiful cocktails. So, and whilst learning some important things. I love it. Thanks so much, Em. It's been lovely to chat with you today.
Lovely chatting with you, Em.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you take care, and we'll have more Broad Radio after this. Well, you can file our next guest under Women I Wish I Was Best Friends With, because she's an absolute superstar. She's an actor, presenter, singer, activist, all-round superstar. There she is, Julia Zemiro. Hi there.
Trying to find my place in the screen. Oh, look, can I just say thank you, Joe and Kerrie, for giving me a reason to get up this morning and put on, clothes. I'm so delighted to be here.
Well, you're in New South Wales. You're in New South Wales, right? And you're a part of the creative industries. So does that mean that you have basically come to a standstill as far as all your work is concerned?
Joe, let me just say this to you. There is a 1,000-piece puzzle there of the bridge that links Denmark and Sweden that I'm struggling with, but I'm persisting and learning patience, because there's literally jack nothing to do. No, look, obviously I'm not someone who'll sit down and do nothing. I've got a few little things I'm doing, but they're all for free, and that is fine. I've always done stuff for free. That's not the issue. I want to be positive, but I just don't see how we're going to have theatres full of people until next year. And let's say even with my show, Home Delivery, if we do that again, that means going into schools, it means travelling around the country, it means going into people's homes. It's just a whole other layer of production that just takes so much time, and the ease of what I do is to be able to be close to people and hug them and kind of be personable. So it just affords us all a lot of thinking time.
Isn't it amazing though, Julie? Like, we just took all of that for granted. Everything you just said, like how we interact with people, just those small little things, of course, not just theatre, but especially your show, it so much rides on that, as does a lot of productions as well. And you just go, oh, you just can't do it like that. Not for now. Well, how is our landscape changing, and how much is that for good?
When people liken it to, some people have likened COVID to, a war, and I don't know about that, but certainly, I think sometimes they talk about World War II, because that might be something that is still, they make movies about it and it's in people's minds. But even when you talk about, let's say, in France or in England during that time, you could still touch people. You could still go to a bar and watch someone play music. You could still dance. You could still, let's face it, have sex and hang out and be with people and make out and feel that you were still close to people. And that was sort of a lifeline of going, well, we still have each other. But when we're separated like this, and the thing that's separating us is literally something you could catch and get infected. I think that is a very significant, profound thing. And there'll be books written about it, and there'll be papers written about it, and it will be really interesting to see how people went through it and what the fallout is.
Do you ever have reflective moments, and I can hear a bird in the background, so I feel like you're on a sort of a property where there's places for reflection.
I'm on Gundungurra country. It's just a backyard, but geez, there's a lot of birds. Thank God. I've got some friends.
Oh, it sounds beautiful. But do you ever have reflective moments where you imagine the world 10 years from now and what actually it will look like? What will we learn from this? How will we have changed? And how will we be living? Do you ever do that?
I sort of think about that non-stop.
Yeah.
Because I don't just mean for performing. I genuinely don't. And I don't just mean for my locality or my city or my state. I think of everyone. Doesn't everyone? Like, aren't we all sort of worried about how other countries are doing, and aren't we literally going to all be in this one together? And I think about, I really do think about the young people, because, you know, honestly, I could never travel anywhere again tomorrow and stay here and have so many memories to reflect on. Those memories that keep you warm by the fire. Maybe not at 54, was hoping that might be at 82 years of age. But, you know, I genuinely feel like I'm in some weird retirement now. But I think of my sons who are 19 and 20. I think of my nieces and nephew who are all under 10. And I think if you don't have the opportunities to finish your degree on campus, meet new people, have that experience, do different things, go overseas, what memories are they going to be making? And if it comes to a point where they say only, you know, this many people can travel overseas from Australia, I'll happily put my hand down and say, let someone else go, because it just feels so compromised. And look, I'm very excited about the next election and working towards finding some new voices who that genuinely care about people. I think surely part of what you've just got to like people to rule people, for want of a better word.
Yeah, so Julie, tell us a little bit more about this kind of new vocation of yours, which is heading into the political arena. Tell us all. Tell us what's going on.
Look, I guess because we're all trapped at home, and whether we like it or not, online is a sort of a window to the world and to what's happening out there. And because all my work has been cancelled, I sort of feel I can't embarrass or affect anyone in my work, really, because I feel a bit free to talk, I suppose. And then I just think, well, even if I was filming, I know that I film with really good people who agree with what I'm doing. And I'm not doing anything that crazy, but basically we are all citizens. We all have something to say. We all have a voice. And I don't know why so many Australians don't sort of make the link between what they do in their own lives and what happens in their own lives and that house on the hill in Canberra that makes decisions for you. I think people really are still in denial about that. I mean, there was a thing on Have You Been Paying Attention? They were some show. They were showing Sam the weatherman, who was doing a Zoom with 15 people all around the country, and it was a quiz. And one of the questions was, who is the treasurer of Australia? And no one knew. Now, I'm not saying you've got to read the paper every day, but if you don't, and his name has been in the paper, it's been in the paper, listen to me like I'm up, 100 years old. It's been out there. There's a real disconnect of going, you are allowed to speak up, ask questions, talk about politics. It's not a dirty word. Don't use the term politics. Use how you live. And what I love about the Voices of groups, and if you haven't heard of them, just have a little Google, Voices of, and there are different electorates around Australia. I'm in Hume here. They're looking for candidates that are actually from the community who are very good at what they do, who are willing to step up and possibly present themselves as independents against some people who are in power that have not done a good job, in fact, have done sometimes a corrupt job. And I think you're allowed to speak up about that. You're allowed to say, is there a choice? And I've enjoyed doing that.
Well, I really love that you are, because I guess you're maybe broadening people's perspective a little and suggesting to some, if you feel so inclined, to seek leaders or members of parliament outside of the main two that perhaps represent your community more. That's basically what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and just to, don't leave it till that minute when you're walking in. I mean, how many elections I feel I've been to where I'm in the line and I could hear people saying, who are you going to vote for? And that means to me that they haven't done much research, which is fine, but it's not fine because these people, now, if you're absolutely sure of who you're going to vote for because you know what they stand for, well, fine. But when people are still figuring it out, what happens, I think, is that they get to the ballot box and just go, oh, look, the only name I really recognise here is who's in already, so I'll just tick that. And I guess what's exciting about the independents, and we've seen this before, certainly in the Gillard government with Rob Oakeshott and Tony Windsor, when you have some really interesting independents that hold the balance of power, and maybe it'll be close again between the two parties, who knows, but they'll just be there to say, we can vote with our conscience, we can hold you to account. They do reading. They actually do all the reading. They get extra staff. They look at it and they're not told what to say. And I don't know. I think COVID's bringing all this up. All the layers of society are unpeeling. We're seeing how things are made or not made. And certainly Annabelle Crabb's show, Misrepresented, kind of nailed home again for me that house is built for adversarial discussion, not real discussion. So... yeah. And we need little windows of hope.
Well, but also that, today is the second day of the Women's Safety Summit, and it was instigated in response to what has been a really bad year as far as what we're learning, our government and our Prime Minister particularly, their attitudes towards women, right? So this has been a response to... At the same time, so the Prime Minister gives the keynote speech yesterday. He says we need to change behaviours and attitudes so that we stop violence before it starts in Australia, acknowledging that women feel like they're not, that they're ignored and gender inequality is really rife throughout all levels of society. He acknowledges that, but this is just after they voted against almost all of the Respect at Work changes. So I feel like the independents are a really great way to start if you're wanting some response to, actually listening to women in Australia.
Yeah. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? You would think a keynote address. I see why he thinks he should do it, but it's just not right. I mean, it's completely tone deaf, and there are there are so many extraordinary women you could have got to talk as a keynote address, and like you said, only 49 of the 55 recommendations from Kate Jenkins' report, 49 of the 55 were rejected. I mean, 49 of them. What's the point? So this summit, it's the second day today. I watched a lot of it yesterday. I just had it on as I was doing work around here. And they began the day with a panel of Indigenous women, and which was absolutely correct to start there. But at one point, Marsha Langton just says, you're still not listening. You are not listening to Indigenous women. You're not listening to us. Now, look, if we're not starting there, we can't go on. We can't even move forward. And then later on, David Koch was on it. Now, I don't know. I don't see David Koch as someone who has any place on a women's summit. He kept calling everybody ladies.
What was Kochie there? I couldn't understand that.
Look, he was part of a panel. Yeah, he was part of a panel, and he was there in his capacity as, what is he, some manager of a football club or something?
He's president of the Port Adelaide Football Club, yeah.
Maybe it was to do with that. And I understand that sometimes you need to have a male voice there. Sure, of course, or sport is important, but I tell you, there's some amazing sportsmen and women out there who can speak to this in a much better way than that. So, I don't know, maybe they're appealing to a certain market. I understand that too. But... look, this isn't going to go anywhere. And the fact that, Brittany Higgins was not invited. Grace Tame did say on Twitter she was invited but turned it down.
There they are.
Rosie Batty was there. I mean, look at that picture.
Oh, what a glorious picture.
That picture just brings me to tears because those women are only there because something hideous happened to them. What we're doing if they hadn't had the background they had. But what they're choosing to do is stepping up, and there's more courage and there is more integrity in those two women than anyone in that house. So I look at that picture and I think that if that's the future, that's what I'm going to feel hopeful about. Let me be of help. Put your hand up and be of help, and listen and read. And we still have to find a way to get engaged and get involved. We're all we can't get out and do anything. I think they love it.
Well, already on Facebook, I'm getting on YouTube as well. Julia has my vote. You should run that, Julia.
Julia for PM.
But see, the thing is, you know, I'm really against someone who happens to be a performer and in the public eye and is an entertainer to be put forward for any position this important, because I know what my strengths are. I know I'm a good MC. I know I can do interesting things. I can communicate with people. I would never put myself forward for a candidacy or anything like that, because that is a serious job, and there are some people in the entertainment industry who can do it and are absolutely engaged to do it. You know, James Matheson wanted to run against Tony Abbott initially because he felt compelled to, and that guy is smart. Baz Dubois is running for a seat in the Senate because something in him is burning and he wants to get up and say something, and he feels that there's corruption there. So that's my strength, and I'm happy to come here and do this, and hopefully when we get out there, maybe do a live town hall event with the candidates, maybe.
Well, let's go to something lighter, and Kez, we want to talk about ABBA, don't we?
Yes. Look, yes. I just wanted to. Can I just quickly say about what you were just finishing up with Julia said? Look, I noticed my own narrative. I've said most of my adult life I don't understand politics. Well, I can learn to do that, you know. So we start exactly what you were saying, Julia, grassroots level. Let's come in and educate ourselves, because what's happening in the big house is not good enough. So I take that responsibility too, to go, I need to, you know, educate myself. The end. ABBA.
The word, the end. ABBA.
The end, ABBA.
Now, Julia, my partner Lexi and I, we're very ambitious. We have bought tickets to the concert.
Shut up.
We did.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Knowing that we could sell them if we can't get into the country, but we just thought, we've also got tickets to Sister Act at the same time.
I'm so stupid. I went online and went, they're actual tickets, but what for? Aren't we all going to watch it online? And then I realised, there are some places where you can still go into a big room and watch people. Oh my God, what's the date? What date are you going?
It is August the 4th, because we've got tickets to Sister Act, which we've had for 2 years, which have been postponed. So we thought, well, let's just, fingers crossed we can get there. So we thought we'll just book it the day before. You never know.
Well done.
Anyway,
well done.
Why not? It's
very
bringing
good.
some joy.
Look, my first concert I ever went to, which is a question we always ask at Rock Quiz, was ABBA in Sydney. I went on the Friday night when it didn't rain, when Frida didn't slip over. It was magical, even though we were quite far back. Fast forward years later, and I've always loved them, not in an ironic way. I do not love ABBA in an ironic way. I love them in a true way, in a real way. They were like my aunts, I have to say, or my big sisters. I just always felt that they were like family or something. And my parents were great, but there was a bit of benign neglect, let's be honest. So I feel like those two women were always there. Anyway, fast forward to then get a Eurovision gig, do that gig for 8 years, love it. And then one of the years we were there, the ABBA Museum had its official opening, and I got to interview Bjorn and Benny and Frida. And I wasn't there. And I have to say, it was amazing. Oh, there she is.
Oh, look
you
at
guys
you.
are organised. You're so organised. Look at her. Oh, she was elegance personified and amazing. But when I listened to that new song, the two new songs, to hear voices I know so well, aged, beautiful, older, fragile in some places, I lost it. I cried like a baby, and I realised I've not been listening to music much in lockdown. I haven't. And it just opened up a kind of chasm of emotion, maybe because I think it will make me sort of sad. I just felt so moved by what they're giving us in this ridiculous time. I mean, talk about the timing, and just to hear those mature voices singing, woo, lost it.
And don't they sound good? Like, so good. And I was saying to Joe earlier, they're still them. Like, they haven't tried to be anything else. Why would they? And they're just true to them, and it's just beautiful and super nostalgic, and we're all here for it.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, Benny and Bjorn are the ones who just would never retire ever and would have toured for the rest of their lives. It's the women, particularly Anna, who sort of said, I'm done, this isn't for me. And, that happens a lot in bands, right? There'll be a couple of members, we know this, we've read about it, who are like, you guys love this, I don't, I miss home, I can't do this all the time, I feel like I'm a cog in a wheel. But to have somehow convinced them to do this, well done. And it's the gift that's going to keep on giving, because it's just 2 songs now, and then the album a little bit later on, and then you at the concert, Kerrie. I mean, you'll be doing a live cross with Joe, I should imagine.
We should, absolutely.
It is such an amazing thing. What a thing to aim for. I love that you and Lex have done that, Kez. What a great thing.
Thank you. Yes.
I do feel like, Julia, you have given us a little insight into your youth, which is one of the things you do so well. Love this segue that I'm doing. One of the things you do so well in home delivery, right? You give these little insights into the histories and the childhoods and the formative things that have made these incredible people. And geez, you've had some gorgeous people on. Look at, there's Gibney, and then there's Sam Neill. Look at you having a couple with Sam Neill. Stop it.
Any chance we could.
The amazing
Beautiful
Miranda
Miranda.
Tapsell. Oh my God, so many people. All right, but what I want to know is, where do you come from, Julia? If you were to interview yourself, like every time I see you, I want to know, where did you grow up? Who are the things and the people that actually, what made you decide to follow performance?
Accident. I would say there is a chance I might do my own home delivery if the show ever ends. I mean, it's a possibility. I think I'll be quite uncomfortable doing it. But anyway, look, my dad's French, my mum's Australian. They met on a boat. They came back here. I grew up in Bondi, above a restaurant. My dad had the restaurant downstairs, ran it, did the cooking. And by chance, around the corner, so we would go to that restaurant, but by chance, around the corner, up the street, was Bondi Public, Wellington Street, a little primary school. And by chance, within that school, that Aussie school, there was a little French school.
Oh.
So every day I walked to school from my house in primary school, and we did everything in French, everything. It was like being in a school in France. And there were a real mix of kids. There were diplomat kids there, but there were kids like me, whose mum was a teacher, dad had a restaurant. There was a real mix, and it was kids who were there for a year or two, keeping up their education before they went back to France. A lot of us didn't go back, a lot of us stayed. And by the end of 6th class, I was well and truly bilingual, and then thought, well, we're staying in Australia, you may as well switch to the Aussie system. And then went to Sydney Girls High School, selective, we'd probably visit there. I mean, that school was fine, but university is where I kind of woke up. Sydney Uni, doing lots of drama there. And then, of course, we would all audition for the acting schools. So you audition for NIDA in New South Wales, VCA in Melbourne, and got into VCA. And to be able to get on a plane at 24 and go to Melbourne, that I'd never been to before, and do 3 years of acting training there, that city totally has my heart. It's where I made so many discoveries, so many connections. I lived there for 10 years later. I got a rock whiz came out of that. For me, Melbourne is, it's like I would say my spiritual home, certainly in Australia. There's no doubt.
What a lovely heritage story.
I'm just
that,
like, wow, that's awesome.
Wow.
I was just going to say, I might say quickly, Julie, one of the first things I don't know how long ago that we saw this was at Chapel of Chapel in Melbourne. It was spontaneous Broadway.
Yeah.
And you selected my suggestion. I was pretty chuffed.
Oh, did I?
I don't know how long.
What was
how
it?
long
Do you
ago
remember what the title was?
It was,
well, we've done...
Mine was Nuns in Boarding School. It was something like that. I can't remember.
And that's good. Look, we've done so many iterations of that show. I'm not sure. I would say, could have been 15 years ago. But we've done different versions of it along the way. And basically what we do is, it's an improv show where we come on stage as kind of caricatures of the musical theatre world, which in itself is enjoyable to play. So the magnificent Genevieve Morris plays Dame Helen Highwater, kind of a Judi Dench character. She's got top status. And then Chad was this kind of gay choreographer played by Jeff Payne. And Ross Daniels was the accountant of this small theatre company who sometimes got dragged on stage because we didn't have enough actors. And I was the young ingenue who had just graduated from Frappa in Western Australia. It's not the Western, because, you know, there's WAPA, which is the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts. She went to the Fremantle Academy of Performing Arts, so Frappa. And then we would get the audience members to write titles of songs that didn't exist that could be in a musical. So, you know, one of my favourites was one called Pouting Over Putin. And so you get this title and you don't tell them yet, but you build a story so that is the final gag. So you'll go, it's set in Russia, and you'll give some story, and you get the musician to start playing a little kind of vampy tune, and then you reveal that the song is called Pouting Over Putin, and you improvise a short version of that song. It really only needs to be 30 seconds to a minute. Yeah, it was great.
So good.
And then we do these songs, Thank you. I miss it I miss it.
Terrific, yeah.
Oh, Julia, if only we could be back in theatres watching something so glorious as that. It will happen. It will happen. We'll get there
I know.
one day. I know. And it's been a delight to have you on Broad Radio. Thank you so much for all that you do in the activism space. I know that it does feel weird as an actor to kind of bring your voice to these things, but it's important. And I know that people really value it. And I'm grateful to you for that. And for all that you do. Watch Fisk, by the way. It's a great series on ABC iView. I just love it. Kitty Flanagan's series. It's so funny. And let me tell you, your hair, it's so impressive.
I know. It's a world of its own. You'd be right into that, Kerrie. You'd understand.
Yes. Oh, look at that. There it is. Look at that. Amazing. We have to go.
Power quip right there.
We're running super late, so we have to go. It was so gorgeous to see you. Take care all the way up there.
Lovely
and we'll
seeing
have
you.
more Broad Radio after this.
Australians know that sun exposure can cause skin cancer, but dermatologists also know that it can cause wrinkles, pigmentation and age spots. That's why you need sunscreen every day. Ask your Chemist Warehouse pharmacist which sunscreen is right for your skin.
Broad Radio. Talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au, or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis? We've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
We are going to be joined by one of my favourite guests that we've had so far since we launched Broad Radio at the start of this year. But first, I wanted to just mention, Kerrie, it is World Suicide Prevention Day on Friday, which is a really super important day.
Absolutely, yes. So there is lots of things online that you can get across. This subject matter is very important to me. I lost my own daughter, Rani, to suicide 3.5 years ago. So I just wanted to bring attention to an amazing support group called Support After Suicide. You can find them online, supportaftersuicide.org.au. Not only have they some great resources for support, as the name suggests, but also some strategies that I've lost my words. Anyhow, places where you can go to virtually to get some help. Pre and afterwards, especially during this current time. The statistics aren't. They're terrible due to COVID and everything like that. They've partnered with Lifeline to do quite a few virtual events, so you can get across that as well. And I think it's really essential. And one thing that I read fairly recently, of course, we see lots of posts with people saying, if you're feeling in any particular way, reach out. Well, someone posted, well, how about people reach in? And I thought that was really poignant. Don't wait, because people sometimes they're just not in that position to ask for help. So just keep an eye on your mates, your friends, your family. Keep across it all, and then of course across this day, which is on Friday. So
yeah,
thanks.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Kerrie, for bringing that up. It's super important that we mark that day and, yes, reach out to those in our circles and make sure that everyone's doing okay, and also sort of having the conversation perhaps on their behalf, because you're right, when you're feeling so overwhelmed with that kind of heaviness and depression, anxiety, you're not always able to do it yourself. So, yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up,
Thank you.
Kerrie. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, look, we're not Oprah yet, but we thought we might delve into the world a little bit of book club sort of vibe. And this is a book that I have been really enjoying. It's called A Dictionary of Lost Words. I would have brought my copy, but it's by my bed right now because I haven't quite finished it. It is by Pip Lincoln, who joins us now. Hi there, Pip. It's Pip Williams.
Jo.
I've written
Hello,
Pip Lincoln in here.
I was just thinking, I have
not your surname.
Who's that?
ghostwriter.
As I was saying it, did you hear me go Pip Lincoln? Because I'm like, that's not her name. Her name is Pip Williams. Hi, Pip. Lovely to have you on Broad Radio. I love your book. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And it's really lovely to be here, Jo and Kerrie. Lovely to see you both.
So, without spoiler alert, right? Because I don't want to give away what the book is, the plot of the book. But essentially, it's set during the time and the process of writing the Oxford English Dictionary. So already that made me go, oh, of course, someone wrote this at some point, way back when. And we meet Esme, who's this young girl whose father works in the team, who's defining the words. And as Esme grows up, she's collecting the words that don't make it into the dictionary, which are women's words, right? So this blew my mind as well, because I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, someone had to decide what words go in and what don't. And generally speaking, they were men. So you've done a huge amount of research to create this book. What did you learn how much of it is factual?
Well, basically, half of it is factual, really. What I've done is woven a fictional story of a girl called Esme through the real story of the development of the Oxford English Dictionary. And like you, I've got a number of dictionaries on my bookshelves, which I've never questioned their authority. You go to them to solve Scrabble arguments. You go to them to get the definitive definition of a word. And I've never questioned that until I read this book, which is The Surgeon of Crowthorne by Simon Winchester. It's a non-fiction book about a relationship between the editor of the Oxford English Dictionary, James Murray, and one of the volunteers who sent words in. Lovely book, but by the end of it, the thing I understood about the dictionary was that it was written by men, that the words themselves could only get into the Oxford English Dictionary if they had a textual history, so if they'd been written down, essentially. And I was left with this question about, well, if most of the books, and this was a Victorian era project, the dictionary, most of the books at that time had been written by men. And if they could only access words written by men to understand what a word meant, that meant words that were spoken by people who didn't write could be missing from the dictionary. And in particular, I was interested in women. I was interested in the words that they might have used in the birthing room or the kitchens, or words that might have been used in coal mines, or in fact the trenches during World War I. These words were not necessarily ever written down. And so I have no doubt that there are many, many words that were lost that I certainly never found. But there were also a few words that I did find that ended up in my novel.
It's I when I started reading this, I thought I never, like you said, Pip, I'd never thought about this. And why wouldn't you? Like, we just take so many things as face value. So I was really fascinated by this, and the way you write through it, to me, it just felt kind of like just had this lovely melodic rhythm to it. It's a beautiful read, and I thought, well, what drove you to do this? I think it's just so fascinating, and so many words in there. And there's one I know, Jo, that you said your aunt.
Well, I will say yes. You're bringing women's words in, and there is a section around the word cunt, which is one of my favourite words.
Let's say it out loud.
Yes.
All three of us have one.
I love that you say that.
Cunt. I love it.
Cunt. But my aunt and my mum, who are both English teachers, English lit teachers, they struggled with that particular section and the word cunt. Did you worry about what the reception might be?
I didn't worry, but I did anticipate that some people might not enjoy reading that word, might not enjoy Mabel's limerick, because that word comes up in the context of Esme, who grows up in the scriptorium essentially. And I mean, one of the things I wanted to do to explore two questions really do words mean different things to men and women? And if they do, does it matter that the Oxford English Dictionary was essentially a male project? And so the way I explored that was to put a little girl in the scriptorium where all the words were being defined and have her grow up in that place and see what happens to her as she's surrounded by these words. How does she affect the words and how do the words affect her? So that's essentially how the story then unfolds. And as she gets older, she starts collecting words when she's about 4, a slip of paper, and the words were all written on slips of paper. There'd be a word and a sentence showing how a word was used. One of these slips of paper falls into her lap. She's under the sorting table where all the men are sorting the words, and no one claims it, and so she keeps it. And that's the first word that she collects, and that word is bondmaid. And this is a real word. It means slave girl. And it really did go missing from the Oxford English Dictionary, and it should have been in there. So it wasn't one that was excluded on purpose. It should have been there, but it wasn't. And James Murray, the editor, assured everyone at the time it was the only word that had ever accidentally been lost. But they could never explain why it was missing from the dictionary. And so that's where my story starts. Esme stole that word. As she grows, she collects others, and one of them is the word cunt, which she collects from an old prostitute in the covered market who tries to explain what it means with a limerick.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that there are words still missing from the dictionary which perhaps are women's words?
I have no doubt that there are words that are lost to history, perhaps because they were never written down at the time the first dictionaries were being compiled. Just like there are many, many thousands, millions of words spoken by First Peoples of this country and others that have been lost to history because they were never written down. And, you know, colonisers, the first thing they steal is your land, the second thing they steal is your language. And they steal it essentially by stopping you from speaking it, by not teaching it, and so on. And at the moment, there's a renaissance of learning Indigenous languages in Australia, but many words have been lost, and it's a reconstruction period, really. And so I think the same thing would have happened with women's words, because women had no voice, especially in England at this time, and my book explores this as well. Women didn't have the vote until 1928. Some women got the vote in 1918, but at the time of my story, they were fighting for the vote. So the suffrage movement was well and truly happening over there. And that movement happened at the same time as words were being collected for that first dictionary. I think these days the Oxford English Dictionary is constantly updating. So it's now on its 3rd edition. They're sort of reviewing the history of words as well as adding new words. Literacy is much higher. There are many, many more forms of the written word. So if you think of Facebook and Twitter, those platforms are legitimate places to go to find out the meaning of words. And so there are far more ways now for far more people to have their understanding of a word included in the Oxford English Dictionary.
But what's critical is that we have diversity in the people that are making those decisions. And not
You're
just,
absolutely.
Yeah, not just women, but obviously women of colour and Aboriginal women and women with disabilities and LGBTQI, so that there's language represented across the board.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, my book is about the Oxford English Dictionary. I have a copy here. You can see how old it is. This is just A and B. So
wow.
There were 12 volumes of this in the first edition, published in 1928, 20 volumes published in 1989, and they don't think they'll print the third edition because it will be so big, because they never get rid of a word from the dictionary once it's in. But you're absolutely right. You know, the people who were compiling this dictionary, you know, between 1858 and 1928 were all white, educated men. And so it's not just women's words and women's understandings of words that were left out. It was also working class men's, it was immigrants, it was people who spoke English around the colonised world, and they were many. And the way they interpreted and morphed the English language, you know, to suit their cultures and the languages that were their mother tongue. I mean, these words were often left out of that first dictionary. And I think today, I heard Julia talking about coding. That is a real issue today, that a lot of the coders are of a particular demographic, the people developing digital language, and it will have an effect on the way, on everything, on the way we interact digitally and online. It is being determined by a particular subset of people that does not represent all of us.
Yeah, it's a massive concern. Women, get coding. We need you. We need you in the AI world, absolutely. And now I understand, Pip, that you've had a worldwide release. Congratulations. It's so awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really awesome. I'm thrilled and sometimes a bit bemused, and you know, I can't believe it really, because it's such a specific topic, the English language, and yet it's being translated into about 15 languages now, so or about to be. And I'm very curious about how they deal with the detail of some of the words that I include, and whether those words have equivalents in other languages. Cunt, for instance.
That's right. How do you say cunt in I'm sure the Germans have a word for cunt.
It might have some origin story in Germany, actually. But I mean, one of the things about, just to go back to that, and I don't mean to sort of, you know, offend anyone, but one of the reasons there are a lot of words in this book that pertain, and I didn't do this on purpose, it was as the story unfolded, that do pertain to women's bodies. And I suppose one of the reasons I really wanted cunt in there was partly because it's one of the oldest words in the English language. It ticked every single criteria for inclusion, but was excluded because it was vulgar at the time they were collating the dictionary. So there are so many things wrong with that. First of all, it was a word that was around in the 13th century in England and has a textual history. It was a street sign. So it was the name of a lane in London called Grope Cunt Lane. And Grope Cunt Lane, as you can imagine, they used to name streets and lanes after the economic activity in the place. Grope Cunt Lane was a street of prostitution. And that's the first time that they think it was written down. But it was also written down in Chaucer's tales, Canterbury Tales, and other literature of the time, and predominantly as a euphemism, not as an insult. And I suppose the issue I have with the way the word is used now, and the reason I say it as often as I can as a euphemism for my vagina, is because this word, this euphemism for part of a woman's body, gets thrown around as one of the most vile insults, usually for a man. And this is the thing I object to. I don't think I'd object to it quite so much if it was an insult that was thrown around usually for a woman, but it's not. it's usually for a man, and I find this objectionable, and I guess I want to reclaim it as a woman's word. As you know, as offensive as it still might be as a euphemism, I still want to claim it as mine.
Well, I celebrate that. What about you, Kez?
Yeah, 100%. And Pip, I can actually see your beautiful book being not only translated, well, it's being translated into all the languages, but also being made into a beautiful miniseries. 100%. This is something deemed for the screen.
Yeah, it does span
that needs to happen.
It spans a lifetime, so it might be too big for a movie, but perfect for a miniseries. Yes, I think we should put that out there.
Let's just find a local all women's production company. I think Rose Burns' production company in Sydney. That sounds like it'd be pretty good.
Yes, I like the sound of that. It really does lend itself to that, and also, I mean, it really opens your eyes around that suffragist movement and what it was like. I mean, to think that women were fighting just to be able to have degrees, you know, to go to university, and things that we take for granted now. So
absolutely,
I love that perspective, but it also then makes me think about where we are now with our current movement for equality and how far we still have to go. And I kind of inspired me to go, we've got to keep fighting.
I think one of the things for me, historical fiction, and I don't know if it is historical fiction, obviously, but really I didn't go to write an historical fiction. I went to write about the Oxford English Dictionary, and the reason it was interesting to me was because the themes I was exploring were still current. It's all about representation of women and women's words and women's voice, and purely by accident, really, you know, I did write this during the Me Too movement, but it doesn't really have a Me Too theme. The theme it really taps into is that lack of voice, that when we speak, we're not heard. When we speak, our words are diminished. The word suffragette, you mentioned the suffragette movement. That's an interesting word, actually, because it was coined by newspaper men, shock jocks, I suppose, of their time, in 1906 as a diminutive for the women who'd started to become militant. So up until 1906, the women's various organisations were just all under the banner of suffragists. But when Emmeline Pankhurst's group, the WSPU, started smashing windows and graffitiing and creating letter bombs, etc., newspaper men coined the phrase suffragette to put them down, to essentially say they were little girls acting up. They weren't quite the real thing, just like a cigarette, a kitchenette, you know, all of these words. The et on the end is a diminutive. And what Emmeline Pankhurst did with that word to turn it around very quickly, to change its meaning, is she appropriated it and called their journal The Suffragette. And today we still use the word suffragette in a much more positive way. We tend to use it as an umbrella word, which is actually a little incorrect. Suffragist is still, you know, the umbrella word really. Suffragettes are a particular group, but we all identify with it now in a very positive way, or in a different way, not to the way that it was originally coined. And it's just an interesting, words like humans have a sort of story arc. They respond to the environment that they're in, and they change. And that's what is wonderful about the Oxford English Dictionary, actually, because unlike other dictionaries, it gives you that history. It shows you how a word has changed over time. And that's why it's really important to record all the words, not just the ones that, that are unoffensive to you.
Yes. Well, we are so late it doesn't really matter because it's our show, we can do whatever we want, but we could talk to you forever. Pip Williams, it's been absolutely joyous to speak with you about your gorgeous book. I really, really love it. And I guess it's just opened my eyes to how language has a gender attached to it and also a power, and sort of to try and wrestle that back and go, no, let's have more of the women's words out there with our meaning attached to it. I just love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pip.
It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Pip Williams, go and get her book. It's a truly joyous read and something to do in lockdown. It's really saved me, actually. The Dictionary of Lost Words. It's absolutely beautiful. We have to wrap this up because we have a show at 1 o'clock today for Women's Health Week. We're going to be talking tricky periods. We have Young Australian of the Year, Isabel Marshall, and gynaecologist Dr. Elizabeth Farrell joining us. I'm doing that show with the amazing Zoe Daniel as well. And tomorrow, Kerrie, I'm going to see you at 1 o'clock for our live show.
I will see you again then, Jo. Thank you for great conversations today, as always.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks, Kez. You take care.
You too, Dal.
We'll have Broad Radio this afternoon at 1 o'clock. See you then.